Hey, what's up, comrades? Hope you're all doing well. Go ahead, like, comment, share, subscribe, yada, yada. All right, cool. So today we're going to take a little bit of a departure from what I normally talk about, which is just random bullshit I'm involved with to entertain myself. I had to read this book for class, and it was pretty good. Nothing groundbreaking. It's one of those things that as I'm reading it, / listening to the audiobook version that I torrented off the internet, that it just reinforces everything about reality that I already understand, and that I feel like most people kind of get. It's just shocking for people who would actually read this book, I think. Because the people that know tend to be, what's the term? More blue collar, I guess, the workers, where they're like, this sounds like some old bullshit, or like, I'm seeing some random bullshit, I don't trust this stuff. Because they don't put a lot of stock into experts, per se. Anyway, I'm getting too into it. Let's get started. So it's an anatomy of an epidemic by Robert Whitaker, who's like some journalist guy. I don't know. He's not like a doctor or scientist or anything, which is good, because that's not who I want to listen to. Because I promise you this. I promise you, every single person listening to this, I promise you, 80% of the doctors you talk to don't know what the fuck they're talking about and are usually corrupt. So that's generally the truth with most experts, especially in America, because everyone's got like a check to cash, and everyone's got a pretty low bar to a price, because we're cheap. We're very cheap here in America because there's no social security net, right? So the price to buy out someone's dignity or respect or personal ethics is incredibly low. I face this all the time in my professional career and get into fights with people about it all the time. And so hearing this guy uncover, quote unquote, all this stuff, I'm like, well, yeah, no shit. Like, the fuck have you been this whole time? Like, you believe doctors? I don't believe shit these assholes tell me. Like, I'll go in there because I need like a medication for like a very specific thing that I already understand that's what I need. And if they try to give me something else, I fight with them until I get what I'm supposed to be taking, because most of the time they're dumb as shit. And now that they got these PAs and who are bad across the board, and nurse practitioners who I'm 50-50 for. Like, I almost feel like some nurse practitioners are 100 times better than doctors because they actually care about people, unlike most doctors who just care about that paycheck. Again, there's 20% of good doctors out there. So anyway, all right, so this is really focused on psychotropic medication and how it's been overprescribed and overused and actually causes more harm than good. And like I said, it's a pretty good book. So if you're interested in just being like, waking up some more about reality and about how you should never trust experts or people in authority ever, under almost any circumstance whatsoever, because they usually don't have your best interest in heart, this is a good book to read. And how, these assholes who probably all think they're buying electric cars to save the environment and shit like that are literally poisoning children based on greed, based on getting paid off by Pfizer or whoever else. Like, and it may sound like I'm talking about COVID stuff, which I'm not, or it may sound like I'm talking about stuff with the AIDS epidemic, which I'm also not, and the assholes who are involved with like killing people then, like Anthony Fauci. This is a totally different thing that most people don't think about, because most people are like, oh yeah, if you're depressed, you take like an SSRI, that's good. And I've been saying for years, because I literally read it in a textbook while I was studying in like my master's degree or something, that like SSRIs do not work. And in fact, they can cause, there's a lot of side effects, like erectile dysfunction is like one of the most common, that are not good for a drug that does literally almost nothing. And that long-term use can actually cause deleterious effects for people. Okay, so Robert Whitaker here, that's what he breaks down. He kind of just gives like a history of like psychiatry. This book's very focused on psychiatry because psychiatrists are normally the ones who prescribe medication. Now, psychologists in certain states and for the Department of Defense can prescribe medications, but it's been the American Psychiatry Association that's kind of been running this thing, along with the National Institute of Mental Health, which are both exceedingly corrupt organizations, just like every other, just like the American Psychological Association, just like the FDA, just like all these assholes. They're just corrupt bureaucrats who are getting kickbacks and to do and say whatever, and they're more in it for the cash and the cash money than anything else. All right, so this guy does a very good job of just kind of going through each of the kind of like types of diagnosis. So he does like a brief history at the beginning, or actually, I feel like he does a pretty good history. And he also, one of the things I like a lot is that he doesn't get into this too much, but he talks about how the Freudians, who were the original talk therapists, all kind of fell under Freud, were like heavily discouraged, and the Freudians were like mostly psychiatrists. Like when we're talking about psychologists, we're looking more at like Bandera and behavior therapy, which is better than just regular talk therapy generally. But at the end of the day, it's really just like, can you connect with some therapy? Works if you connect with the therapist. That's it. The whatever you do after that point is kind of just like tiger therapy. Like it's just kind of like bullshit to like, distract somebody to make them think that something's happening. And that's commonly we find with psychotropic medication. Like all these studies this guy brings up a lot of different studies, and all these studies for like every disorder, the placebo groups or just like talk therapy was better than taking the medication. Now he's not making the point that medication should never be used, and I would never make that point, because there are certain cases where people they're in such dire straits that a short term like hit of like some type of psychotropic medication just to get them to like be in a place where they feel like they can do therapy or do behavior modification and stuff like that. That's all you really need. So there are certain situations. Now, any long-term use of medication is going to be bad, is deleterious. It's more damaging to an individual because you're literally rewriting their brain chemicals. Like any other fucking drug, you overdo. So if you're taking like long-term antidepressants, your brain is becoming addicted to it, and it's changing the way it works, and it's not helping, because one of the things to know about these psychotropic medications is they affect a lot of neurotransmitters and the hormonal output. And like, what's something people know? Histamine. So you take like an antihistamine blocker for allergies, right? You don't take that thing consistently for the rest of your life, because histamine does a lot of different stuff, like wake you up, right? It doesn't just like affect those pathways that are causing you to have like an allergic reaction. So serotonin and dopamine, like the more intense cognitive and emotional neurotransmitters, affect a lot of other stuff as well. So if you're like fucking around with that, you're going to really severely fuck somebody up for a long period of time. And then you're going to you're essentially, these SSRIs aren't even like SSRIs. The way they function, and a lot of these kind of drugs, these reuptake inhibitors, is that they shut down pathways to make like a more intense feeling in those like other ones, and to increase like the output to like make up for that, which is what causes like the slightly more happy feel. And that really kind of fucks you up, because it's like breaking parts of your brain. But the book lays this all out pretty well. It's structured well. Like I said, he goes through the history, then he goes through like psychotic disorders, depressive disorders, manic depressive disorder, mania, bipolar disorders, mood stable or anxiety disorders, and then it gets real dark and depressing, or upsetting, I would say, because he starts talking about the heavy like childhood abuse from these psychiatrists who were just like super overprescribing children with like stimulants and an antidepressant and an antipsychotic, and that they're diagnosing like 2-year-olds with like bipolar disorder, which is fucking insane. And how these people are like real monsters. And you can see it because he goes to a couple of these like conventions for like psychiatrists, and it's like everything's sponsored by the drug companies. And if you go to the drug company panels, and they get these guys to just like talk about how great the drugs are and how they're like the miracle cure, and how everyone's getting better, and how they get celebrities to come in and do this shit. And then in like a back hall on like day 3, they'll have like the actual experts who know what the fuck they're talking about be like, this shit doesn't do anything and it's bad, and people will stand up and boo them, and it's like, the fuck's wrong with you, like, you asshole. And it's because like they just care about the money, and that's really what it comes down to it. That being said, if you are suffering through some mental health stuff, therapy, supportive therapy, like talk therapy, supportive therapy, behavioral modification, all that stuff can fucking change your life completely. It can revolutionize the way you're existing and make everything so much better. But you got to find the right person. You got to find somebody, first of all, who's not going to just diagnose you with 45 different things because fuck you, and then who's going to try to treat you with like medication and like some old bullshit. And this is why people always ask me, "Oh, hey, can you help me find somebody?" And I'm like, I really can't. Like, you got to just like open that fucking phone book up and call around, and it sucks. that it's got to be that way. But this is not like, hey, I just need to go to a doctor for my annual checkup to make sure my cholesterol level is not too high or whatever, right? That's kind of a whole bullshit thing too. That's the thing. The more and more you open up like these journals, and the more you read about like medicine and like healthcare, especially in America, the more you realize 90% of it's like bullshit, and that you'd be better off just going to the local faith healer, to be completely honest, for like most things. Now, if you got like a gunshot wound, you want to go into surgery and have them get that shit out and sew you back up, obviously. Or you break a leg, you want to cast that thing and take some painkillers so you can like get through the day. But outside of that kind of stuff, it's like, and the Romanian guy, he was a medical doctor, or he got through medical school, said the same thing, said something that I 100% agree with. Like, I would never get an optional surgery. Like, you're fucking around with things and you're going to cause more problems than you think you are. Like, people talk about the selective eye surgery, which I could get for free, but I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't even want to cut into my eyes. The fuck is wrong with you? Like, I will never get a surgery if I have like the option to do that. Now, if I'm in some sort of terrible car accident and my fucking knees, my whole leg's like jangled up and I need to get like everything reset and stapled in and stuff, like, I guess it is what it is. But if it's like any kind of elective surgery, like, no, fuck you. Like, I'm not doing shit. I'm not getting my balls cut up. I'm not getting my eye cut up. Like, there's so much shit that goes wrong with this stuff. And that's if, even if they do it right, even if there's no complications from the actual surgery, like, you're fucking around with things that, like, just leave it alone, man. Just wear a condom. It's really not that big a fucking deal. Just wear glasses. You'll be fine. People have been doing it for hundreds of years. You don't need fucking eye surgery, like, multiple times till you can see. Like, it's stupid as shit. But yeah, so this guy, Robert Whitaker, keep getting off track. There's not much to talk about. Like, you really got to dive into it. I'm not going to spend like an hour and a half like dissecting everything. I already got to like read a report about this for school. I just felt like I read it and it was interesting. And I would say, if you're interested in this stuff at all, or you want some ammo to use against like your awful spouse, or your brother-in-law who wants to medicate their kids, and you're just like, hey, maybe you shouldn't. Anatomy of an Epidemic is a great book. And then, yeah, he just wraps it up very well, explains everything very well, quotes actual studies, and talks about just corruption in the medical system, which is very obvious if you pay attention to anything for the last, I don't know, my entire life, 50 years. All right, cool. So yeah, highly recommended. And yeah, cool. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, and I will catch y'all later. Bye.